Good morning, everybody. I hope everything is fine from your end. Okay, this is also a rather unusual video. It's like a sandwich video from my end. Okay, the title of this video is "Why We Need Responsible Journalism in a 21st Century Format." Okay, let me begin with this video by saying what exactly journalism is. Journalism, as it is understood today generally, widely by the common man and the layperson, is a process of gathering, writing, and sharing news and information about people, events, and ideas. It can be found in many different forms. This may include newspapers, magazines, radio, television, and the internet, etc. What exactly do journalists do? Journalists inform the public about key current events, about trends, about ideas and events that shape the world. They serve as an important constituent of a democratic society, of a healthy and vibrant democracy. Okay, and journalists also help other people who are less fortunate or less intellectually aware or inclined to make sense of the world around them. How exactly does journalism work? Journalists consider the audience, tone, and accuracy of the writing. They are taught the five whys: who, what, where, why, when, and how. This is also forms a part of creative thinking and innovative thinking. So it allows them to develop a breadth and gamut of vision, wide ranging vision. And journalists must be objective and they must be careful to manage bias because they are informing or misinforming the people. So the errors that they induce can be magnified and can create a ripple effect throughout society. So they must be objective and biased at all times, and they must take into account and consideration the well-being of society. Okay, what exactly is freedom of speech? Freedom of speech is the right to express ideas and opinions without a fear of censorship, without fear of retaliation or legal action. Okay, it includes it refers to all areas. Freedom of speech is protected by international law. Okay, it is protected by constitutional rights in many countries. Like India, for example, we have freedom of speech. USA and most countries in Europe have freedom of speech, but freedom of speech is restricted or limited, if not existent in erstwhile communist countries and some other parts of Asia and Africa. We also have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which states that everyone is entitled to freedom of speech, regardless of his race, ethnicity, color, religion, or any other affiliation, political or non-political affiliation. Okay, Universal Declaration of Right allows people to express their thoughts, opinions, and ideas through speech, writing, and any other vehicular medium. Okay, it gives them the right to speak in any way the manner they deem fit. Okay, it allows them the right to seek, receive, and share information of ideas. If you see the history of freedom of speech, it has a very long and checkered history. In ancient times, freedom of speech was instituted in idea of freedom of speech was instituted in ancient Greece. The ancient Athenian democracy was thought to have established the principle of speech around 2,600 years ago, and public discussions and gathering took place in universities in ancient India also. In England in the 17th and 18th century, people had the right to demand us to express their ideas and opinions, though in a rather limited fashion. Okay, our awareness gradually began to uh, increase, and in the American colonies, which were part of England, people sought increasingly a level of modicum of political and intellectual freedom. This eventually helped them to turn the tide and retaliate and revolt against the British Empire. Okay, and unfortunately this is we don't have completely good news here. It is not all hunky dory. In the 19th and the 20th century in India, the British Empire imposed severe laws to curb freedom of speech and expression because they wanted to perpetuate the British Raj. Okay, however, the Indian Constitution in 1947 enshrined freedom of speech is one of its basic constituents. Okay. Similarly, the UN Conference of Freedom of Information and Freedom of the Press con- created an international legal framework for individual information, and it also created a framework for communicative rights. Okay. And however, there are some restrictions on freedom of speech in some countries. This includes slander, libel, defamation, incitement to an offense, contempt of court, violating public order, violating decency or morality, public decency norms. Okay, what exactly is freedom of press? Freedom of press is the right of journalists to and media organizations to publish information without uh, censorship or information. Freedom of speech is protected by legal protection, constitutional amendments, laws, government interference, violence, disinformation, social media, etc. Okay, freedom of press is also protected in India. Okay, freedom of press has had a long and checkered history. From the 18th century onwards, Europe began to promote it in a big way. And after the Second World War, Hugh Bailey, also president of the United Press by Services based in the US, also promoted freedom of news dissemination. And the European Convention of Human Rights includes Article 10 related to human expression. Okay, and you also have the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights, etc. And it is also protected by the First Amendment of the US Constitution. We also have the concept of the fourth estate. The fourth estate or the fourth power refers to the press and the news media, and you have freedom of the fourth estate as it's explained by Enram and other people. Okay, and journalists also need to bear in mind their social responsibility. They published a paper called Social Responsibility or Academic Freedom, emphasizing ethics and codes of conduct care for a scholars' duties towards science, society, and the education system, 21st century science. This applies to journalists also. They don't have unbridled freedom, as some people say. Okay, and we had journalism has had a long history and can be traced back to ancient Rome. And many examples of early journalism exist, like Acta Diurna Bao, Mass Relationen, Relation aller Führenden Männen und Gedenk Würdigen Historien, Weekly News. And the first English newspaper was Barrow's Worcester Journal. Regular daily English daily newspaper was the Daily Courant, launched in 1702. Okay, and newspapers also played a critical role in the American Revolution. For example, we had Thomas Paine's Common Sense and the American Crisis, which ensured the overthrow of we had the Boston Tea Party and other events which led to American independence. Okay, in the 20th century, there was a rise of radio first, then television and the internet. This broadened the definition of the concept journalism, and these journalists began to play a responsible role, and they also kept government authority and government power in check. What are the different types of journalism? The different types of journalism are investigative journalism, which is a type of journalism that involves researching and reporting on issues of public interest that are hidden or not well known. Investigative journals try to do a lot of research and historical data and other data is researched. Okay, we have a large number of examples of investigative journal, like Eric Schlosser's book about human cost of fast food, and William Thomas Ted also played a major role in Victorian era. We also have Enlightenment journalism. This led to the age of Enlightenment in Europe and the Renaissance also. And this was vehicular medium was newspapers and increased use of print, increased use of media awareness, etc. And we had Gutenberg who introduced the printing press in the 14th century. So that led to Enlightenment journalism. We have whistleblowing journalism, okay, which reveals information about an activity that is deemed illegal, immoral, illicit, unsafe, or fraudulent. We have entertainment journalism, which is only for purely for entertainment purposes. We have advocacy journalism, which advocates a particular cause. We have gatekeeping or mediative journal, which mediates two parties to allow them to reach a goal. We have sensational journalism, which indulges in gossip, slander, mudslinging, mud tracking, rabble rousing, and is also comprised of iconoclasts. Okay, and we must also distinguish at the very outset good journalism from bad journalism. What exactly is good journalism? And what is meritorious journalism, what is egregious journalism? Characteristics of good journalism is identified by good journalism is identified by objectivity, unbiasedness, and factuality. Accuracy, fact checking must be adhered to. Simplicity and brevity, okay. Understandability by the common man and common masses, okay. News values must also have other aspects, attributes such as timeliness, relevance, and impact. Communication skills must be good. Good language must be employed. Journalists must have their curiosity. They must allow people to think on their own. Okay, large type of variety of reporting techniques such as investigative techniques, feature and opinion reporting must also be followed. Okay, and the importance of journalism is journalism helps raise public awareness. It helps raise awareness on a particular topic of public concern. It helps increase political accountability. It helps deliver social justice. It creates an economic impact. It influences culture. It influences global perspectives. It helps maintain track of issues. It helps maintain diversity of perspectives. Okay, if you see the influence or history of journalism in India, The first newspaper in India is credited to James Augustus Hickey, who launched the Bengal Gazette and the Calcutta General Advertiser way back in the year 1780. Several other newspapers followed, such as the Bengal Journal, Calcutta Chronicle, Madras Courier, Bombay Herald, etc. And the colonial administration, British Empire administration also introduced several acts to curtail the freedom of the press because they wanted to protect their own hegemony and power. For example, however, we had some acts which tried to reverse this amount, such as the Press Act of 1835 or Metcalfe Act. Okay, and in 1857, after the Sepoy Mutiny, we had the first war of independence or Sepoy Mutiny. The government introduced the Licensing Act and the Vernacular Press Act of 1878, introduced by Lord Lytton, gave the government rights to censor the vehicular press. Okay, however, the English press was mostly spared from this, and we had other measures enacted between 1908 and 1912, the Newspapers Incitement Offences Act, the Criminal Law Amendment Act of 1908, the Press Act of 1910, and the Prevention of Seditious Meeting Act of 1911. These imposed severe restrictions on the press. And after the Second World War, many more restrictions began to be imposed, but these were by and large futile because we had the sailors' revolt and other revolts. Okay, now let us look at the scenario post-independence. The Press Inquiry Committee was set up in 1947 with the aim of examining press laws and the right of the Constitution, proposed Constitution. The Press Objection Matters Act was passed and placed restrictions in the publication of objectionable matter. It remained in force till 1956. Okay. And we also had other acts such as Delivering of Books and Newspapers, Public Libraries Act 1944, Working Journalist Conditions of Services and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1955, Newspaper Price and Page Act 1956, and Parliamentary Proceedings, Publication of Proceedings Act, Publications Act 1960. Okay. And there are no formal bodies which deal with freedom of press in the country. Okay, however, there it is dealt with under Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution, which says that all citizens have the right of freedom to speech and expression. These freedoms are restricted under Article 19(12) that prevents absolute power under 19(1). Okay, however, many of the rights, civil rights in India were suspended during the infamous emergency imposed by Indira Gandhi during 1975 to 1977 for an 18-20 month period. And for most of the emergency, in Indira Gandhi's political opponents were all jailed and sent to prison and put behind bars. Okay, more than 1 lakh people were sent to prison. And after a few days after the emergency was imposed, the Bombay edition of the Times of India carried an obituary that read, "Democracy, beloved husband of truth, loving father of liberty, brother of faith, hope and justice, expired on June 26th." Okay, it was very satirical and sarcastic. Okay, sardonical. A few days later, a censorship was imposed on newspapers. Delhi, what is that? Delhi edition of the Indian Express on June 28th carried a blank editorial. The Financial Express reproduced in large type Rabindranath's poem "Where the Mind is Without Fear" and the head is held high. This is a tongue-in-cheek approach. Okay. Other newspapers, however, sat on the fence. Some of them like Hindu took on moderate positions because they tried to bootlick and appease the government. Okay, we have had famous Indian journalists such as Barkadat, Ravish Kumar, Rajiv Sardesai, Arnab Goswami, Sweta Singh, Sudhir Chaudhary, Anjana Om Kashyap, Ashok Malik, Pranab Mehra, etc. However, most of them are stuck in the old format, and many of them are left leaning, and therefore they tend to look at the economic reforms as neoliberal. We have what is called a kind of a gap, okay, intellectual gap, and a time gap in understanding. So we need a new generation of thinkers. Okay, this India is generally, on the whole, it's quite impressive because journalists in the USA also, countries like the US also provide unrestricted press freedom, which is provided, as I told you, by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. If you look at journalism in the developing world, press freedoms varies from country to country. Reporters Without Borders (RSF) has provided a list of countries based on high and low press freedoms and has ranked countries accordingly. If you see journalism in the USSR, it was tightly controlled by the state and Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Okay, it is now defunct. And the media in the USSR was generally used to spread propaganda, encourage citizens to behave in a certain way, and promote values of the state. Okay, and there was virtually no private media existed, and journals like the Pravda, newspapers like Pravda were controlled by the press. Okay, likewise, China, Israel, and Myanmar also were the worst offenders in terms of press freedom, and there is only very little press freedom in China. China's constitution likewise prohibits media workers, including internet users, from publishing, writing, circulating, otherwise promoting fake news, disinformation, slander, or propaganda, and promote issues that compromise on national security, promote terrorism, ethnic hatred, violence, and obscenity. Okay, while taking into account the consideration of good and responsible journalism in the context of the 21st century, we must also bear in mind 21st century issues and 21st century intellectualism. Okay, I have written about 21st century issues. We have global warming, ethnic hatred, strife, drug addiction, substance abuse, human trafficking. I proposed a large number of them. However, it must not be intellectually or ideologically. It must not be ideologically driven. This must be aligned to the problems that as they exist on the ground. Constructive criticism also must be followed. That is, criticism provided with the intention of helping the other party improve or helping the world become a better place to live in. We also require positive reinforcement. This is the process of encouraging or establishing a pattern of behavior by offering a reward when a particular kind of behavior is exhibited. We also need responsible journalism. Responsible journalism means promoting the greater common good. We need to have epistemic coherentism, balancing long-term considerations with short-term considerations, local with global considerations, and trade-off, prioritization, etc. We need ideology-free journalism also and agenda-free journalism also. Agendas can be direct or indirect, open or closeted, political and non-political. Our agendas can be easily found out by public, and no agendas must be pursued to the extent that they are detrimental to society. This may be a pipe dream, but it must be tracked down and it must be. We must focus on this nonetheless. Okay, there are many different problems with current journalism. First problem is it is excessively focused on the criticism of the government. This dates back to the Nehruvian era. Our many states and central governments have been doing a good job, impressive job since then. Many journalists are still preoccupied with 20th century issues and values. They have not brought themselves to the 21st century. For example, they do not deal with issues such as global warming and other issues, environmental issues, and population management and other issues. They're still ideology driven. They're driven by counter agendas of self interest. They do not pursue or value constructive criticism. They're not driven by desire to do public good or the greater good. They may not focus on a wide range of interests. They may not provide diverse perspectives. Okay, there is no multivocality of thought and opinion. Citizen journalism has not taken up a big way. It has enormous potential, but has not taken up. Okay, there is no bulwark against fake news, which propagates quickly and rapidly. Okay, changes in journalism must be brought out in the 21st century because 21st century is a different place from the 20th century. We have had the rise of internet, rise of social media. What exactly is social media? Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, or X, YouTube, etc. You have had the kind of rise of YouTubers. There are many YouTubers like Dhruv Rathi and others. You have had the rise of smartphones, influencers on social media. Okay, information nowadays spreads much more widely due to quickly, rapidly due to social media. And we have had the death of newspapers. Many newspapers are closed down in print format. We have had online newspapers. Many newspapers such as the News of the World, Green Bay News Chronicle, Prince George's Journal, Montgomery Journal, Jewish Chronicle, Jewish News, Northern Virginia Journal have all closed down, and they some of them only offer online editions. There is a decline in circulation of magazines as well, and the idea of press freedom will always remain. Okay. Our journalists must bring themselves up to date with contemporary issues, and they must be while the values will always be the same. Values will not change. However, they must bring themselves up to 21st century and provide a vehicular medium by which free thought is expressed. With this, I end my video. Thank you.